Joe Milton, Jacob Warren, and Omari Thomas. Were these the right three representatives for Tennessee at SEC Media Days, and why the representatives league-wide are kind of a snoozer? That and more here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, Tuesday, everybody. Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Kane, @_Kaner on Twitter, and @Locked On Vols is where you can follow the show. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every single day, and we appreciate you making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. On today's show, we're going to go over the player reps from each team attending SEC Media Days and why it's kind of a snoozer. Plus, Edwin Spillman, coveted Tennessee linebacker target, sets his commitment announcement date. Is it going to be Tennessee or Ohio State? And then we'll get into your mailbag questions later on the show. So, for Tennessee, quarterback Joe Milton, tight end Jacob Warren, and defensive lineman Omari Thomas. Yeah, all three of those guys deserving to represent the University of Tennessee at SEC Media Days. Okay, Tennessee's one of the... there's a couple of teams around the SEC that don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Obviously, Tennessee's not one of those. Tennessee knows who its quarterback is. That is going to be Joe Milton. Joe Milton has assumed the leadership role. This is Joe Milton's team, and so having him go down to Atlanta for the to Nashville for the SEC Media Days, that's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, Jacob Warren, and he's one that kind of surprised me a little bit, and it's not like he's undeserving or he's not capable or he's not a good candidate to go down there. He's just so quiet and unassuming that when we've had this conversation before, I haven't really even thought about Jacob Warren. And I don't know why. He's pretty much been a player coach for the last 3 years. He's been in this tight end room dating back well before the COVID year, which feels like forever ago. And he's a leader on this team and is a 6-year senior. So I don't know why I never considered him, but he makes a whole lot of sense. And then you have Omari Thomas on the defensive line. He's a guy that we spoke about with Josh Ward last week as a guy that would be very, very easy to kind of represent the defense because there's not really anybody in the secondary that you send out there. Aaron Beasley would be a great candidate at linebacker, but he's kind of soft-spoken and unassuming as well. But Omari Thomas is a part of all leaders, and he is a very big leader on this football team, and so that makes a whole lot of sense. So for Tennessee's three representatives, pretty good. There's some other ones. I mentioned a couple other ones, like Aaron Beasley could have been in there. I think on offense, Cooper Mays would have been a good guy to send. Brew McCoy, I think, would have been a decent guy to send. Of course, there's some others as well. But I think for Tennessee, those three representatives are good. But why these three? Well, Joe Milton's the leader. He's the leader of the team and obviously the quarterback room. And he's got a whole lot of hype, on his shoulders. Can he live up the hype? We'll have to find out. But a lot of people are talking about Joe Milton this offseason. And deservingly so. His tools and everything, his attributes are through the roof, and you've seen viral video go after throwing 80 yards at the Manning Passing Academy and all that. But, to answer some of those questions, how are you going to take over for Hendon Hooker? What did you learn for Hendon Hooker or from Hendon Hooker? And how are you going to have sustained success as Tennessee's quarterback? He can answer a lot of those. But plus, Tennessee will get a whole lot of hype with having Joe Milton, Cool Joe, in front of the microphone, in front of the cameras, talking at the SEC Media Days. So, that makes a whole lot of sense. Jacob Warren's not going to say anything that's going to get you in trouble whatsoever. And Omari Thomas, same. None of these guys will say anything that's going to get you in trouble. But Omari Thomas is very well-spoken and very smart and very articulate. And I think he's just a great representation of what Tim Banks and obviously Josh Heupel being the head coach, but Rodney Garner, want in a defensive lineman. And so I think all three of these make complete sense for Tennessee. But when you look around the rest of the SEC, these were announced Monday morning. Representatives, the three players who will represent each team at SEC Media Days. J.C. Latham, this is Alabama. J.C. Latham, offensive lineman. Kool-Aid McKinstry, of course, we know who that is, cornerback. And then Dallas Turner, the linebacker. No quarterback there because, they don't know who a quarterback is. And that's the theme you'll see, and we see it every single year. If you don't know who your quarterback is going to be, then obviously you're not going to send a potential guy that could win that job because that'll take over the storyline in terms of quarterback, battling instead of the bigger team focus. So Okay, the three guys for Alabama, not doing a whole lot for me. Arkansas, you got KJ Jefferson. He's an established quarterback in this league, all right. Landon Jackson, defensive end, and then you have Reem Sanders, one of the best running backs in the country. So, okay, Arkansas kind of checks out a little bit. Auburn is Luke Deal, tight end, Elijah McAllister, linebacker, and Cameron Stutz, offensive lineman. Boring. Again, who are you going to send? It's not like you got a whole lot of household names right now. Plus, you don't know who your quarterback is, truthfully, so I get it, but boring by Auburn. Florida, Kingsley, I don't know how to say his name, an offensive lineman. Jason Marshall Jr., okay, and Ricky Parashall, the wide receiver. Okay, I've heard of the wide receiver, of course, but I understand you've lost a lot as well, but that's pretty boring if you're Florida. That's very boring if you're Florida. You look at Georgia. Georgia's sending Brock Bowers, the tight end, Kamari Lannister, a defensive back, and Cedric Van Pran, the center. Those are very well-known players, so okay, Georgia gets a pass there. But look, no quarterback, obviously, because even though it's going to be Carson Beck, it's not announced yet, if you will. Kentucky, Eli Cox, Octavius Oxendine, and J.J. Weaver. Octavius Oxendine, of course, if you're a Tennessee recruiting fan, you know exactly who that is. J.J. Weaver's been in this league for a long time. But again, it's kind of boring, right? I mean, I understand a newcomer at quarterback, you're probably not going to send to SEC Media Days, though it's been done in the past. But Kentucky's is kind of boring. LSU sending Jaden Daniels a quarterback, Josh Williams a running back, and Mekhi Wingo a defensive tackle. Okay, at least you get Jaden Daniels. Ole Miss, Cedric Johnson a defensive end, Quinton Junkins the running back. Okay, that's a good one. One of the best running backs in the country. And Deatrice Prince a cornerback. Now, at least you get a good player there. Mississippi State sending Jaden Crumbly, defensive tackle, Jaquarius Marks, the running back, and Will Rogers. Okay, you get a quarterback there. Missouri, Chris Abrams-Drain, Javon Foster, Darius Robinson, doing nothing for me. South Carolina, Tonka Hemingway, Kai Kroger, who is a punter, and Spencer Rattler. Okay, at least you're sending a quarterback, but you're sending a punter. Oh, okay, we know Tennessee's representatives. A&M sending Fadil Diggs, defensive lineman, McKinley Jackson, defensive lineman, and Anaya Smith, a wide receiver. Why send two defensive linemen? That does nothing for me. And then Vanderbilt's got Jalen Mahoney, Will Shepard, the wide receiver. We know who that is, and Ethan Barr. I mean, none of these guys do anything for me. And again, you're kind of working with what you have. And in terms of the quarterback position, only 5 quarterbacks total are going to be at SEC Media Days, which kind of sucks. But you're replacing a quarterback class that was very well known, that had a whole lot of hype, and top to bottom was one of the deepest quarterback classes in the SEC in recent memory. And you're trying to replace that, so I get it. But, I mean, SEC Media Days is the unofficial kickoff to the college football season. And the slate of players is not very appetizing. It's not very appetizing whatsoever. That's just my opinion. But, hey, it is what it is. Maybe some of these guys will say something to have some bulletin board material. But for the most part, coaches send these types of players because they're going to say the right thing. They're going to be great representations of their program, and they're not going to get anybody in trouble. All right. And it's also kind of a reward. But I do miss the days where, you sit behind the microphone and you talk smack, and then you get on that jet and you go home, and it just continues to build the anticipation of the season that's right around the corner. Maybe we'll get that, but it is what it is. In closing, Tennessee's sending 3 guys that will do a great job, and Tennessee's at least sending a quarterback in Joe Milton that has a whole lot of hype, and will have all the reporters and all the cameras all around him all day long. It'll be great representation for Tennessee as you continue to jump on that hype train, if you will, no pun intended, for Tennessee football. Hey, one of the biggest Tennessee targets in recruiting for the class of 2024 has set his commitment date. Will it be Tennessee or Ohio State for Edwin Spillman on this date in a moment when I tell you in terms of when he's recruiting? That and a whole lot more coming up next right here on Locked on Vols. But hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Birddogs. Birddogs, they make you look good, and they've got stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh, giving you truly a sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. And they have because regular shorts have this strict fabric that restricts movement. What Birddogs does, they fix that issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so that you have a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement in your everyday life. Birddogs uses an anti-stink sweat fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And one of the best things about Birddogs is when you go to birddogs.com/lockedon and you are Locked On College and you enter the promo code Locked On College, you're going to get a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. If you're watching on YouTube right now, had my coffee in here today. It keeps it warm for hours upon hours. But hey, last week or during the 4th of July, I was sitting poolside, had a couple of beers in this thing, keeping it cold all afternoon long. And ice water for night times, whatever it is. This durable Yeti-style tumbler, and it's pretty fashionable as well. You can get it for free by putting the promo code Locked On College. So again, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege, enter the promo code Locked On College for a free Yeti-style tumbler. And I'm telling you, they feel great. They look good. The versatility is key. You're not going to want to take off these Birddogs. I promise you that. Hey guys, appreciate you checking out Locked On Vols here on a Tuesday. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel, I encourage you to do that, as well as wherever you get your listening podcasts. Thanks so much to you everydayers for making this podcast what it is. Edwin Spillman, Tennessee Target linebacker for the class of 2024. He has announced that he has set a commitment date. Essentially, let's try that again. He has announced a commitment date where he will announce where he is committing to. We know Edwin Spillman. He's been a longtime Tennessee Target for the class of 2024, linebacker in-state from Lipscomb Academy. He is the younger brother of Nate Spillman, who signed with Tennessee in the class of 2023. 6'1", 220 pounds. Again, from the mid-state Nashville. It's coming down between Tennessee and Ohio State. And we've always thought that this is a slam dunk because, one, in-state kid, two, his older brother's already on campus. The expectation's always been that he's going to commit to Tennessee, and he's going to commit somewhere on July the 21st, officially, Tennessee or Ohio State. But I would continue to feel good if you're a Tennessee fan, just knowing, again, it just makes too much sense for him to be in Knoxville, in my opinion. Just makes a whole lot of sense. In-state, family doesn't have far to travel, all that type of stuff. Brother already here. Fits into this defensive scheme very, very well. Columbus is a lot farther away. So Edwin Spillman setting a commitment date would be big for Tennessee. It'd be another big guy to jump in the boat, essentially, and trying to get this class to where it needs to be and trying to build this class. Tennessee had 21 commits total for the class of 2023 before they kicked off against Ball State last year. Tennessee is about 16 commits right now, so well on its way, and still trying to fit the final touches on this class and all that. But Edwin Spillman's been a priority target for years now, and we'll see officially where he chooses on July 21st. But again, I just think it makes too much sense for it to be anywhere, Ohio State, other than Tennessee. All right, so over at On3, you guys know I work for VolQuest.com, and that is the Tennessee affiliate of the On3 network. On3 updated its prospect rankings for the class of 2024, and so I wanted to go through and kind of give you some updates on the Tennessee commits and a bunch of the Tennessee targets. Now, again, it's just part of updates. It is what it is. One year you'll really, really like updates, or one part of the year you'll really, really like the updates, and then maybe later on in the spring or the summer when they do them again, you'll hate them. And this could be for On3, this could be for 247, for Rivals, ESPN, any recruiting service out there. It's just kind of how it is. A lot of Tennessee commits and targets went down a little bit. Some went up, and I want to highlight a couple of those. Tennessee still has, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tennessee still has 8 current commits who are inside the On 300, meaning the top 300 prospects in the country. It starts with Braylon Staley, actually Tennessee's most recent wide receiver commit. He comes in at the 101st ranking in the country. And again, this is just the On3 rankings, not the On3 industry rankings that takes into account On3, 247, Rivals, and ESPN. This is just On3. So Braylon Staley kind of leads the group there, the 101st national ranking. Caleb Beasley, cornerback, in-state prospect, as well as Lipscomb Academy. He comes in second for the Tennessee's class and 107th. Then comes in the tight end Jonathan Eccles of IMG Academy, 173rd. Quarterback Jake Merklinger checks in at number 198 overall in the country. Running back commit Peyton Lewis comes in at 217th. Max Anderson, interior offensive lineman, a recent Tennessee commit over the past month, 251st, and then Marcus Gorey, safety commit from Bradley Central at number 253. He actually went up quite a bit in this updated rankings. You want to look at another one that was a big mover, and that's Jeremiah Hurd, Tennessee lineman. I think that his future is at offensive tackle, but he could start when he gets to Tennessee, start repping, not starting games on the defensive line. We'll just have to see. But Jeremiah Hurd has jumped inside the on 300, if you will. He was not ranked. He was a lowly rated 3-star prospect when he committed to Tennessee. Remember, he's the basketball player. He's the big guy, about 6'8", 290 pounds, but he's been a basketball player his entire life. Played football this past fall, and he was like, oh, well, I'm pretty good at this. Let me use my body and all that type of stuff. And he went ahead and committed to Tennessee back in the springtime. I think he has got the highest upside, in my opinion, of anybody in this class. And, Charles Power and some of the other, director of scouting and rankings and all that over at On 3 kind of see that as well. So Jeremiah Hurd jumps into the top 300 for On 3, now a part of the On 300 class, and that's pretty neat. That's really, really neat, and I'm intrigued to see kind of where he finishes when they update the rankings later on in the fall after these guys play their senior year. What about some targets for Tennessee? Where do they rank now in the updated rankings? Well, Williams Nwaneri, of course, the 5-star defensive lineman. I don't think Tennessee's obviously still swinging, but I don't think he's coming to Tennessee. He is now the number 1 overall player in the 4 on 3 in this class. So that's interesting. Aiden Breland, defensive lineman, is up to number 26. Mike Matthews, very much a Tennessee target. USC, Clemson's in that one as well. He's at number 32 and a 5-star. Brandon Baker, highly rated 4-star offensive tackle, is up to number 40. Chris Cole made a huge jump. He was outside, I believe he was outside the on 300. Maybe he was in the high 200s, but he goes all the way up to number 51, linebacker here. Cameron McKell, cornerback, moves up to number 53. Jordan Ross, Tennessee is very much in that one, as Florida and some others. An edge player is at number 70. Danny Okoye, who was here on an unofficial visit the last weekend of June while there was 15 official visitors, but really hit it off with Tennessee's coaching staff. He's at number 76 now. Ryan Wingo, wide receiver, he's at 97, very much in that conversation with Amari Jefferson, as well as Mike Matthews, of course. Kai Bates, Tennessee target, cornerback, number 149. Kamarion Franklin, defensive lineman, 224. And Bennett Warren, a highly rated offensive tackle that Tennessee is very, very high on and very, very deep with, is at number 270. So, again, guys, recruiting rankings are not everything. And this is the guy that's coming. I mean, I work for a recruiting-based company. It is not everything, but it's something to look at, something to gauge. You look at and project tools and traits and all that type of stuff coming out of high school and going camping and what you show in 7-on-7s and, big man drills and all that type of stuff. What you run in a 40 and an L drill and a shuttle and all that. It's fun to project. And that's all great. And I think a lot of this, you can take a lot from this, but also at the end of the day, it's about getting on campus, getting acclimated to the college game, and taking coaching. Look what Josh Heupel's done the last couple of years with a roster that's not been his. Look at what some of the other coaches have done. It's all about coaching development when you're on campus, and then obviously results. So anyway, those are some updates on the recruiting updates over at On 3 prospect rankings. And of course, Edwin Spillman, a top Tennessee target at linebacker. He will announce between Tennessee and Ohio State on July the 21st, just a couple weeks away. And again, it makes too much sense for him not to be here, but we'll know officially what he wants to do whenever he makes that call. Hey, when we come back, we'll dive into the mailbag, and we'll answer some of your questions right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Let's dive into the mailbag here. It's every single Tuesday. You guys can take over the show by sending in questions and comments, concerns, whatever the case may be, @_Kaner and @LockedOnVols. We'll go to Braden first, and he has a good question. If HBO's Hard Knocks was in college football, what Tennessee team from over the years would have provided the best content for the show? Oh boy, there's some good ones, right? I know you said football, but that 2018-19 basketball team with Grant and Admiral and Bone and Bowden and all those guys, there was no controversy or anything, but Those were just a fun group of guys to be around, and I would love to have seen something on that. Now, as far as football, if you want controversy and you want content, let's start with the good, okay? I think the 2021 team would have been fun. New coach, taking over, new system, all that type of stuff. Went to a bowl game, a winning season in year one. I think that'd be kind of neat. 2020, not just for Tennessee, but for a lot of teams, just because how you deal with the COVID restrictions and basically you were handcuffed for so much of the season. At least we got football, okay? And I'm not trying to say it was not worth it, because you got football, and thankfully, but you couldn't practice. You had guys missing all the time. You couldn't go force. I mean, it was a headache. It was truly a headache. I think for any team, not just Tennessee, 2020 would have been interesting. But of course, Tennessee started 2-0 and then lost 7 straight, and then won your last game against was it Vanderbilt? And I guess it was Vanderbilt. Anyway, that would have been an interesting one. 2017 is the answer, though. It's got to be, right? I mean, you had the falling on a helmet situation. You had Juwan Jennings. You had Juwan Jennings being kicked off the team by an interim head coach, and him going on Instagram Live and dropping all these F words and F bombs and cuss words and all that. I mean, and of course, it was a season that resulted in a head coach getting fired. There was so much drama. Rashawn Golden flipping off, which made a great still picture for anybody's man cave, flipping off the Alabama fan after the pick six. I mean, in recent memory, I think 2017 would be hysterical to watch. But ultimately, you want to see the team improve. You want to see the team win. So I think 21 would have been a good one. 22 obviously would have been great, just with the level of success that Tennessee had. But there's been a couple of really, really good ones here recently that I think would have been fun. 2016, I think, would have been a blast, because you had the highs of knocking off Florida, of knocking off Georgia, and then the lows of losing to South Carolina and losing to Vanderbilt. I think that one would have been a good one as well. He goes on to say, I'm going to save this one for a future day, but he wants me to build an all-time freak Tennessee offense for the following positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. I'll have to save that for another segment. But also, Braden chimes in, because I asked about this yesterday, about the trend going around and naming your favorites. Naming your favorites player on another SEC team, because I did it yesterday on the show. And if you want to go back and listen and watch segment 3 of yesterday's show, Monday show, you can check it out. But Braden chimes in with his a couple of notable ones that I'll mention. Nick Marshall was incredible at Auburn. I think that's a really, really good one. Benny Snell at Kentucky was a good one. Leonard Fournette, of course. Josh Dobbs at Tennessee. Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, and Randall Cobb. All great selections there, Braden. I appreciate it. We will go to Cole next. Cole wants to know, do you think the reason Tennessee strikes out on so many top-tier offensive linemen is the offense we run? Do you think the up-tempo system is hard on the big guys and they don't want to play in it, that type of offense? I'm not going to say anything definitive one way or the other. I do think that, and this is not just an offensive line, but this is for running backs, and this is for just any offensive personnel. I think there's a misconception of what Tennessee's offense is. You see the points and you see the tempo, and so you just assume that it's, hey, let's go out there, we're going to sling it around and throw it all over the field, and Tennessee will let it rip. Joey Halsley, Tennessee will let it rip, but Tennessee runs the football. I remember talking to, I think his name is Jordan Marshall. I can't remember when they commit elsewhere. I forget about him. I think he's a 4-star running back. I think he committed to Michigan back early, maybe in the winter, maybe in the spring. But he was here for a January Junior Day. And I remember talking with him, me and Matt Ray, and he was just like, yeah, I never knew that Tennessee runs the football so much. All you heard and saw is them throwing it all over the place in air raid. It's like that couldn't be further from the truth. So, with offensive linemen, I think a lot of times that they think they're just going to, sit and pass set, and they just throw it around all the time, that they're not going to get to run block and put, see some white in their knuckles and all that. I can't speak for every offensive lineman, but I think that there could be a misconception about that. If you're a competitor, I don't think the tempo is going to run you away, no pun intended. Also, I just think that you need to do a better job recruiting there to an extent, right? I mean, it's the SEC, and you got to win. You got to win some battles, and there's been some battles that have been lost there for sure. You've still brought in some good players, don't get me wrong, but there's been some battles lost there, and you can say that around the board, position wise. You're going to lose some, you're going to win some, but you got to do a better job of winning some of those. So, Cole, I don't really have a definite answer for you. I don't think the tempo runs anybody away. Again, no pun intended. But I just think that there's a misconception about this offense a lot of the time, and I think it sometimes can turn away offensive linemen and sometimes turn away running backs as well. I truly do. Let's go to Willie. Willie wants to know, he's got a couple of questions. Okay, do you think we will ever see a non-Power 5 football team dominate like Boise State did from 2006 to 2012? Non-Power 5 team dominate? I'll say no. With conference expansion and how you're making these mega conferences and everything, you're seeing a lot of the group of 5 good teams, if you will, are going and linking up, joining the Big 12 and all that type of stuff, and they're going and joining other conferences, which is, it's just good. In terms of dominating, I would say no, because you got playoff expansion. And though you're going to get your opportunity the majority of the time, are you going to dominate in the college football playoff against the likes of Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee and LSU and Ole Miss and all these other teams? I don't know. Maybe. But in terms of Boise State was so much fun. I mean, that was my childhood, right? And Boise State was just so much better than literally everybody they played. And they created some awesome bowl game excitement. So I would say for the most part, no, because you're going to get yours, right? Or at least an opportunity to show what you're really made of with playoff expansion. And I love that. And plus, with conference expansion, a lot of these teams we're talking about are going and joining the big boys. So I would have to say probably no. He also says, with your playing career at Carson Newman, what was it like with the recruiting process when you were a senior in high school? I appreciate you asking about that. Obviously, I don't talk about my college football days much because, again, we talk about Tennessee and we're talking about SEC football, and I recognize I was nowhere close, so I just never really even talk about it. But when I was getting recruited to Carson Newman, it was, we're talking about recruiting on a podcast, on the internet. You want to minimize this by 1,000, that's kind of what it is. I mean, it happens. Division II recruiting happens, certainly, but I wasn't even a highly, rated, Division II prospect, if you will. I mean, they didn't have those rating systems. Anyway, for me, I mean, you send the letters and everything, they call you. I was local. I was close to the university, so I could go by there and watch practice. I can go by there and talk to the coaches and stuff. And so it was easy for me. And plus the coach that recruited me, I kind of knew him already. I didn't know him well, but I kind of knew him. So we already kind of had a relationship, but it was fun. They call a couple times a week and everything. And I mean, for guys like me, you're competing against the University of the Cumberlands and, Lindsey Wilson and Campbellsville and some NAI schools. So, I mean, it's not like it's nothing to this degree, but it was fun. It was an experience. I remember, being out with my friends and my phone would call to be college coaches, and I don't care who you are and what level you're playing at. That's a good feeling, right? It's like, oh, sorry guys, hold on. College coach is calling me. Hold on a second. That was kind of fun, but it was obviously nothing to this magnitude. Willie, I appreciate it, man. Let's go to Trevor. Trevor wants to know, if the SEC and University of Tennessee came to you and gave you the task of making Tennessee's schedule, what would it look like? Home, away games, as many or as few SEC games, times, etc.? I mean, obviously, the home and aways would flip every single year. And just from a broader sense of the scale, I mean, I want a 9-game conference schedule. If you're playing in the SEC and you're beating your chest saying, hey, we're the best there ever was, then go freaking prove it. Play 9 games. I mean, it's hard to consider yourself the best if you're not willing to go play another conference game. And I understand a lot of the ADs and presidents and all that don't necessarily want it because it could miss out on your team or your program going to the college football playoffs. Sure, but the Big Ten does it, and it's going to be more money once they figure that out. We're going to 9 conference games as an SEC. I mean, that's going to happen in the near future, hopefully in 2025, right? So for me, I would play 9 conference schedule. You would obviously alternate between 5 and 4 home games every single year, and plus those teams would, those home and away teams would rotate. But for me, 9 conference game schedule, 3-6 model. Your permanent opponents would be Alabama, Vanderbilt, and for me, it'd be Kentucky. And I think if you're a Tennessee fan and it ended up happening that way, you would take that and run. But who's to say what 2025 is going to look like? But if it was up to me, as Tennessee, I would play Vanderbilt every single year, Alabama every single year, and I would play Kentucky because it's one of the oldest rivalry games in all of college football. It is. In fact, Tennessee-Vanderbilt is the oldest. Tennessee-Vanderbilt's the oldest rivalry game in the state. Carson Newman Tusculum is the second oldest rivalry game in the state, and then I believe it's Tennessee Kentucky. I mean, it's got to be, at least rivalry regarding a Tennessee State team. So that's how I would do it. Hopefully I answered your question. If not, DM me and I can go into further detail. You also ask about times. Well, I mean, it all moves around in terms of the TV schedule, but I would never play at noon. Noon games suck. As a media member, I love them because it means I'm done. I can watch football that night. But as a fan, who wants to get out there at 4 a.m. and start tailgating, drinking some beer? I wouldn't. I'd play in the 3:30 time slot or 4, CBS, of course, that's going away, or 4 on the SEC network. And then I play a night game. Night games are fun if you're a fan, I truly, truly believe, because you can tailgate all day, you can watch football, and then you can go wild for your team. Let's move on to Jake. And Jake wants to know, Jordan Tuesday question for Locked On Vols: How does the baseball team's potential pitching staff, starters and bullpen, compare to our staff from this past season? Also wants to know about the projected starters for next year. A lot of that has to do with if Tennessee can get Luke Holman, former Alabama starting pitcher. He's been with Team USA. It's coming down between Tennessee and LSU, and Mississippi State and Alabama are still involved there. But he will be here on campus next Monday to take his visit. So if Tennessee can close and Tennessee can gain the commit of Luke Holman, that would be huge. He would be one of your 3 starters on the weekend. But as it stands right now, you got Drew Beam and A.J. Russell is going to be a starter. Your bullpen, it's going to be pretty decent. You went out and got Nate Snead of Wichita State, A.J. Causey of Jacksonville State. You have some freshmen coming in that have already withdrawn their name from the draft, essentially, or said that they're going to be coming to school, reportedly. Matthew Dallas and Braxton Thacker, 2 left-handed options. We'll see what happens with the Aaron Combs, if he gets drafted or not. You're having some guys in the bullpen. A healthy Wyatt Evans will be big. So you're losing Andrew Lindsey, which sucks. You're losing Seth Halverson. Both those guys were drafted yesterday. But I do think you're still going to have plenty of arms. And, to compete, you got to have arms. And I think the Tennessee baseball team is really shaping up on paper. We got to see how the draft concludes today, but it's really shaping up on paper to be pretty dangerous in 2024. I'll have more. We'll recap everything that was the draft and kind of roster management later this week in terms of Tennessee baseball. And last one, let's go to the YouTube comment section. Rocky Top Tom wants to know, how confident are we that Coach Heupel stays long-term? Our program trajectory is excellent, but it's all because of Coach. If he were to leave, I think we lose all hope. Keep up the great work. I appreciate it, man. Who's to say, right? This is college coaching. If you're not Nick Saban, if you are not, for the most part, Kirby Smart now, if you're not, I know there's some other examples, but Lincoln Riley's proven it. He's not going to get fired anywhere. If you're not one of these guys, like you come, you coach for a couple of years, you get fired, rinse, repeat, move on. That's the nature of the business. I think Tennessee's trajectory, as you mentioned, is skyrocketing. I think Tennessee's on the right path. I think Coach Josh Heupel is the right man for the job. The question is, you are at a Power 5 program, one of the most historic, programs and all. Pricing for you to leave. A lot of people want to say Oklahoma. You want to go home. Well, I'll tell you, as long as there's a Stoops around there, and I understand Bob Stoops isn't coaching anymore, but as long as there is a Stoops within arm length, he will not go back out to Oklahoma, in my opinion. Who's to say 10 years down the line he won't want to go home? I don't know. I can't answer that. But right now, Tennessee's his home. He enjoys it. He loves living in East Tennessee. He loves the program. He loves the people. He loves the fans. So, who's to know? I don't think he wants to coach in the NFL. So, if he were to ever leave this type of Power 5 program, and this goes for anybody really coaching in the SEC, to be honest with you, it's got to be pretty enticing. Again, take Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's a big name, right? He's been here coaching. He's been in the NFL. Offense coordinator at Alabama. He was at FAU. But when he was hitting his comeback trail, and he finally got back in the SEC, and he was coaching Ole Miss, which is a good program, he had the opportunity to go to Auburn this offseason. He did. Yet, he still turned it down. He stayed at Ole Miss. There's a lot of factors in there, but my point is, even going from one SEC team to another, it's got to be really enticing because you are at the cream of the crop. So, to me, I think he's fine. I think he's doing a great job. As long as he wins, I don't think he's going to want to go anywhere. But we know how all this works. You're in a honeymoon phase right now. If you start to lose, who knows? And I don't think that's going to happen this year. I'm just saying, everybody loves you right now, but college coaches, you coach, you get fired, you move on. That's just kind of how it is. But I think he loves it here, and I don't anticipate him going anywhere at all. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here with us today. We'll have a little Award Wednesday on the show tomorrow. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Subscribe to the Locked On Vols YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you again here tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.